Welcome to week 8, INB 420. We're here in the last week of class, and just as a quick reminder, class does end on Thursday as it does in every course. We're talking about environmental policy and sustainability for this last week. And in the lecture, we're going to talk about mitigation, action to reduce GHGs, that's greenhouse gas emissions, to slow or stop global warming. There is consensus, not widespread consensus, but there is consensus among most scientists, and I say most, not all, that there is some form of climate change and global warming that we're experiencing. This is still debatable, so if you don't agree, that's okay. It's just to be part of the discussion that there appears to be global warming from the trend. So not wanting to make this politically charged, but just saying if there is global warming, which there appears to be, that needs to be dealt with in this fashion. Adaptation and action taken to adjust the reality of climate change. So if there is climate change, there needs to be new realities that we need to work through. We need to look at evaluations of the global ecosystem as from different points of view. There's a neo-traditionalist, which says belief that there are ecological limits and need to reduce ecological stress on the ecosystem. The modernists believe in mankind's mastery of the environment, faith in technology. And then there's the biosphere, that is the Earth's ecological system that supports life and the living organisms, including human beings, that inhabit it. So sustainable development. What are we talking about? We're talking about sustainable development. We're talking about the human population and technology has changed the environment, and if that's the case, which most would agree that it is, that there are things that we need to think about as far as carrying capacity. What is that? That's the number of people that the ecosystem can feed, provide water for, and otherwise sustain on a continuing basis. The ecosystem itself is a system of continuous living organisms in a particular area and the non-living components with which organisms interact. How do we achieve sustainable development? We can restrict or roll back development. Many would say that that's not an option, or we could pay for environmentally sustainable development. And option three would be other. And what is other? Well, that's up to all of us to figure out what the other is, what other options are available. The global carrying capacity. Coming back to this, we've talked about the stress and the emergence of the population and numbers that we've never seen before, and that places obviously a stress on the ecosystem. The world population has passed the 6 billion mark, probably around 6.2 or a little more as the making of this video in 2014. But China itself, and we've talked about this in earlier weeks if you'll recall, China itself has more people in China, a population that existed in all the world in 1804. So that's something to think about. We'll put this graph up. We put a graph up earlier in the course, but we'll put a different one. It shows a population 1.7 billion for the world in 1900, projected to be 9.2 in 2050, and then taper off in 2150. So you see the large rise in population. Again, this stresses the ecosystem. It stresses our natural resources such as petroleum, natural gas, and minerals. So these are putting stress on the cost, supply, and delivery. And there are usage patterns. There's forest and land to consider, forest depletion, land degradation, over farming, for example. And then we need to talk about protection of the forest and land. So wildlife existed for centuries and thousands of years. Wildlife and the patterns that they've developed and lived in, these are starting to be disturbed. So there's that pressure. And we need to think about protecting wildlife. How are we going to do that? Freshwater, my suggestion is that freshwater will be one of the battles of the 21st century. If we've seen battles for land, money, as our carrying capacity, as our growth gets larger and larger, and we reach a certain point where it's around 6.2 billion now, there's going to be a definite need for water and delivery to water to more people in more places. And my suggestion is there's going to be some dispute over fresh water, and this is going to be a growing concern. The population means the water supply worldwide will decline by a third by 2050. So keeping that graph in mind, when there will be projected to be 9.2 billion people, our water supply is going to be a third less than it is today. The seas and fisheries, the pressures on the seas and overfishing, we've seen evidence of that in the North Sea and elsewhere we're overfishing our traditional and taking more and more, and it's not being replenished by nature as fast as we're taking it. When you think about protecting our fisheries, we have ground quality issues. What do we mean by ground quality? Well, as all this development occurs, and pollution and other things seep into the groundwater, and it affects the ground quality, affects the water quality. So e-dumping, shipping millions of discarded computers and other electronic devices overseas for disposal. That's an interesting issue, and that's an emerging issue. Multinationals, we come back to multinationals. Just about every week involves some component of multinationals in the either problem or the answer or the equation. And here again comes into consideration private enterprise that have production subsidiaries and branches in more than one country. How are they affecting ground quality, not only where they're based in our country or other Western traditional countries, but what about around the world? So it's a factor. International efforts to protect ground quality. Water quality. Well, as with ground quality, there are international water quality issues, marine pollution, freshwater pollution, and there now becoming more and more efforts to look at our water and the amount of water and the quality of our water in the world. So these are factors for you to think about moving forward beyond this class. Air quality. Obviously, while all humans have to have water within 2 or 3 days and food, air quality, you have to have breathable air. Protecting air quality is important. The ozone layer. It has been depleted from studies. This is generally accepted by most everyone. And again, I always use the caveat most. I'm not saying all, but most scientists and most everyone has accepted that there's an amount of ozone layer depletion from when it was first studied in the middle part of the 20th century to today. It's been depleted. So we need to think about protecting that, because the ozone layer protects us from harmful effects from the atmosphere and the sun, and it's provided a layer of protection. And if it's depleted, then it affects obviously climatic change and other things that affect climatic change itself. So global climate change, what is that? Significant and lasting change in weather patterns over periods ranging from decades to millions of years. Now I know there are trends, and we went through the ice age at one point, many thousands of years ago. There are different trends, and these things are long trendable timelines. So there is always a suggestion that climate change is a part of the natural evolution of the Earth, and that climate change will, at some point, if the Earth is getting hotter, and there have been temperatures recorded that's beginning a degree or two hotter over a period of years, that it'll maybe go the other way, and that may be true. But with more and more people in the world, we do need to consider how even a small amount of climatic change will affect the larger amounts of people in the world. So they've studied these for millions and millions of years and tried to project backwards, and based on that, they try to project forwards. Coming back to GHGs, carbon dioxide, methane, chlorofluorocarbons, hydrofluorocarbons, and other gases that create a blanket effect by trapping heat and preventing the nightly cooling of the Earth. So what happens is, when they're going back to the ozone layer, when there are holes in the ozone layer through depletion of the ozone layer, these greenhouse gases further trap the negative effects, the methane and chlorofluorocarbons, from releasing out into the outer atmosphere. So it traps it on Earth, and that creates a hotter environment here backwards onto Earth. So let's look at this chart, the 1,000-year temperature comparison. Again, these things aren't measured in 10 years, 5 or 10 years. These are measured in hundreds of years and thousands of years. These are the projections from medieval times in 1000 to where you see there was, the temperature anomaly was trending at 0, and then the little ice age, 1600, 1700, 1800, going to the 1900s, 20th century. You see the line spike upwards, and you see the +4 on the anomaly. So what we're saying is, studying the world's temperatures, we're saying that there has been some appreciable, and even if it's measured in tenths of a percent, that still has potential dramatic effects. It's not just we're saying it's risen 5 or 10 degrees. That's not the case, but we're talking just even tenths of degrees of change can cause massive change as far as farming and water and other resources. So this is what they're saying. It's projected backwards, and then you see where we are, and we've just gone forward and moving up. And there is a difference. Again, it's not 100% definitive, but there do appear to be from these studies some differences. So if there is global climate change, which many would suggest, not all would suggest there is, what are the costs of halting or sustainability of slowing this kind of change? Well, what's the response? The Kyoto Protocol, 1992. Again, this in itself has been disputed by the U.S. among other countries. That requires economically developed countries, remember that's going back to week 6, the EDCs, economically developed countries, to reduce greenhouse emissions by about 7% below 1990 levels by 2012. Has that been reached? Not entirely. Again, the U.S. is not a signing country, so they have not adhered to this protocol. Other countries have, did sign, but have not complied. So there's a mixed result. Recent developments: the BP Horizon Gulf oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010. Sure, we remember that. And that will have lasting effects throughout the next years, and who knows, we don't have a definite impact of that yet. Fukushima, Japan, the nuclear disaster in 2011, that's taken that area out for particular area in Japan, which is already heavily overpopulated island. That's taken that area and impact on the water because it was by the sea. So those are not fully realized and fully known yet. But these things, with so many people and with that larger carrying capacity, these events have a chance to impact greater than they ever have. So just wrapping up this course here, some of the question, the main question that I want to leave you with is, what will be the future of global politics for regions, countries, individuals of the world? We don't know. So we've tried to bring up some questions throughout the course. I will say you will be part of shaping the future. Each of you as future leaders and managers and political leaders, maybe managers in leadership positions in multinationals or otherwise, or just in your small town or large town, wherever it may be. You will have an impact, each of you, on how we're gonna answer these questions and how we're gonna fill in some of these blanks from the course. So hope you've enjoyed it, and have a great break in between after this week is over, and look forward to seeing you again in another course. Take care.